people ask, like, are we going to give grades on this draft class? No. I think this is the time, not that we're going to go deep into it. It's the time to evaluate a year ago, right? Like a year ago, this time last year, the Drake Jackson pick was what a great value, end of the second round. He flashed this year. But now is the time for Drake Jackson to step it up. This year. This is a big year for Drake Jackson. I don't know. It felt like an A pick a year ago. Today, I'd say it's a B minus, C maybe. We got to see. Like he's got to take the step they thought he was going to take. Ty Davis Price, love the pick. Okay, played in 6 games last year.
Is he active on game day? Is he playing? Like are all three of those guys? I think there's way more pressure on Drake Jackson than the other did Danny Gray and Ty Davis Price, just because they have other sweet players at those positions.
Right.
So they need Drake Jackson, given that like they lost pass rushers, right? Their edge rushers got free agent contracts. So it's like, can Drake Jackson just become like, they don't need him to be the next Hassan Reddick or whatever, but can he just be like, God, we feel really good about this guy getting 25 snaps a game. And he can get, sack number can't be 2, but it doesn't have to be 12. But it's like, he causes pressure. He has a couple games where at the end of the season, you're like, oh, he had 8 sacks, and he was just a fucking really good player for us.
To me, it turned into last year they couldn't count on him, right? They
scrapped him.
Yeah, you would love to know right now, I am getting 20 snaps out of him week 16 against the Seahawks on Monday Night Football or whatever, right? Like I'm counting on 20. I know I'm getting 20 good snaps out of him. But they can't say that right now. That's what they hope. Well, but they got
I was always taught in the first year between the second year, so like Drake Jackson's this offseason, for guys that didn't do shit, is enormous for them because they can really gain confidence. Typically, when you've drafted a guy, hell, even a first-round pick, but a first, second-round pick, they just tend, because of the turnover in the league, to get more reps in the offseason, which Drake surely will, right? He's going to get a lot of action. And unlike leading up to the draft, a guy like Drake Jackson, you're not working out or training, right? You're just constantly taking visits, meeting. You're just nonstop. So you just show up. You have to kind of start your workouts from scratch. Where this whole offseason, they started working him out, hell, during the season. And, in theory, if he's going to be any good, we should really see a big maturation kind of coming into this year.
Yeah.
We saw it with Banks, right? Last year. Took a huge jump from a guy that was unplayable to just starting left guard all season long. I think the Niners don't even think twice about it now, right?
And they would say if what you just described happens, it would look like that's what was the plan. Because you'd go, remember, USC, very different situations, never had a consistent plan for him, weird off seasons. Now we're going to put him in the system, give him 2 years. And
pick 60. It's not like he was pick 20, right?
Right. But they got what they get out of the draft. They got Spencer Burford, who was critical for them 16 games. They got Samuel Womack, who projects as more critical for them and played a role 16 games. And obviously they got Brock Purdy, right? Let's not bury the lead. The year before, they got Aaron Banks. They got Jalen Moore. They got Diamador Lenore. They got Talanoa Hufanga. They got Elijah Mitchell, right? That was the Trey Lance draft. But that was a lot of depth there and starters. The year before that, the Kinlaw draft, it was really Ayuk, McKivitz, Juwan Jennings, Charlie Warner. All these guys were on the team. Bosa, Samuel, Wisnowski, Greenlaw. So when you remove kind of the positional value of each pick, they've had really good drafts. And, at this point, you'd say Spencer Burford, 4th rounder, would you call that an A draft pick a year later?
Yeah, I've never seen the guy rotate, but yeah, I'd give it a B+.
He played significant time on a team that needed him, right? They needed him.
That's the pushback of would you draft a guard in the first round?
I'd give him the mental toughness on handling the rotation, too.
If you get Larry Allen, for sure. But, you can always find guards in the later rounds, which is true of kickers. The difference is, ultimately, if I draft a guard in the 4th, he does not have to start for me. If Burford couldn't have started last year, someone else would have started, and you probably wouldn't notice much. Where, the kicker, a little like the quarterback, it's just you, right? It's... Once the Cowboys had that situation at the end of the season, there was no just rotate some other guys and we got to slot receiver.
Remember they worked some guys out?
Yeah. Well, it was you're fucked.
Before the playoff game?
There's no middle ground with Moody. He either becomes your starting kicker and you feel good about it, or it's a disaster. That's just that black and white. Where all these other positions, like, kind of plays itself out. You know, like, is Hufanga just going to be some lock all-pro guy moving forward? I wouldn't go that far. But can he be a 5-year, 6-year starter for you? I'd feel pretty good. And that is a lot of positions. Most positions are not Kittle and Warner. They're going to go down like, is that like the second best middle linebacker we've ever had? You know, is that the most talented tight end we've ever had?
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's not typical. Like, yeah, the 49ers in the history of the franchise, yeah, we've never had a Debo in a franchise that has Jerry Rice, right? So it just, like, most teams are like, yeah, we felt pretty good about this guy for a long period of time. That's fine. Where the kicker, it's like, you're either like Robbie Gold or it's just, we're just looking for a new kicker next year. And they will. That's the thing.
Yeah.
The one thing I feel good about this operation of, like, the safety linebacker, you can just keep drafting those positions and kind of the kicker, it's like, if this guy's a fucking disaster, like Aguayo was, he just won't be on the team in 18 months.
It's just a missed pick. It's just like drafting, what's his name? The running back from Ohio State. We talked Trey Sermon in the 3rd round, right? He was pick 88.
You'll just pivot.
He was, I mean, you could barely be less of a non-factor than he was for the 49ers. I know kicker's kind of like quarterback in the sense that if you don't have a top 10 guy, you're just constantly looking for another guy. They drafted here's the other thing they did. They drafted 2 tight ends. I think there is something to be said. And I don't know if I know you saw what Kyle Shanahan said about Cameron Latu from Alabama, who they drafted 2 spots after Moody, because his testing is like off the charts, the wrong direction in terms of athleticism.
Like, didn't jump high, didn't move well.
Somebody tweeted a graph of like all the athletic testing for tight ends over the years, and it's like, lower left is where you don't want to be. But
like
Shanahan,
Kittle, like, I think Kittle was the
Kittle's
opposite,
like upper right,
tester.
Yeah. But one of Shanahan's thing was, this is a converted defensive end. We think there's more in his body, and obviously, like, there's something to be said about getting him around George Kittle, who has become like the Pied Piper for tight end workouts. So there's that. It wouldn't shock. So, look, outside of Moody, somebody else in this draft class is going to end up playing like 14 games for them. Now, maybe it's D. Winters playing a bunch of special teams, but maybe it's Ji'ayir Brown, week 5, something happens, and all of a sudden he's playing a bunch of safety. Like, it happens every year. It's going to happen again.
Well, the second tight end is up for grabs. Like, this guy can come in. He's coming in from Alabama, can win the job and just be playing right there with Kittle.
Yeah, you mean like take Charlie Warner's snaps?
Yeah. Dwellies, the Warners of the world. Like, that is a winnable position. And the reality is, like, if Kittle misses games, they just patchwork that position, right? They end up using Juszczyk over there some. They use an extra tackle. So it's like they don't just rely on the next man up at tight end to just play tight end. That's what makes that a little unique.
That's right. You are second on the depth chart, is way less snaps than the number 2 tight end, is way less impact in the passing game, right?
Yeah, like if Christian McCaffrey pulls a hamstring and has to miss 2 weeks, and I guess I was going to say, and Elijah Mitchell he'd have to be healthy too. If he could just get back-to-back games of 25 carries a game, right? Like, if he's healthy, he would just be the full-time. They would just ride him.
That's the one thing. If you get if Kyle Shanahan signs you as a running back, you're going to have tape to show other people, because there will be one game where you score. You get the chance. Like Trey Sermon had the chance, got hurt.
He even told Moody, he's like, we're not taking a running back here.
Did you think he said it as like even though that's what I wish I could do?
I think it's got to be an inside joke between him and like the scouts. Like, Kyle just wants, we better take a running back every
inside
year.
joke. I think we're all in on the joke, John.
It's not an inside joke, but I think it's an inside joke in the sense that, like, they talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's like, did you send me, or I sent you one of us the tweet that Kyle Shanahan said? All my buddies around the league when we drafted the kicker are texting me, like, laughing at me.
Yeah.
So he's in on the jokes.
He's lucky that a lot of his buddies, and this is where they're able to do shit like this, is like 4 playoff wins in 2 years.
That's right.
I bet a lot of those people texting him would take that,
Yeah. Jay on the stream says, I'm 20 minutes behind. Hopefully you talk about undrafted free agent Joey Fisher. Shepherd University, John, a 4.9 40, 40 reps on the bench, which was the most of any offensive lineman. Although there was Andrew Voorhees, who I don't know how many reps he had, but he did the bench. Remember, he's the guy from SC who did the the bench with a torn ACL at the combine, who the Ravens
Yeah.
drafted in the 7th round. Kind of an interesting pick. But yeah, Shepherd. You ever scout Shepherd College?
Couldn't
John?
even begin to tell you where it is. I do think that's one of the things that makes football so much different than the other two major sports. No shot at you, hockey. Actually, did enjoy. I watched a little bit of the Bees game last night. They got 65 wins, got KO'd in the first round.
Oh wow, what?
Biggest, I think it's one of the biggest NHL upsets ever. But like that guy from Shepherd, it's not crazy. It'd be crazy if he made the team, but like he easily could be on the practice squad, right? Like in the NBA, there's usually 1 or 2 spots open on any, especially a good team. It's usually 1. Remember a big, like the last several years, it was like Gary Payton against, it wasn't Patrick Beverly, but whoever that dude they play. Oh, Avery Bradley. Like, so it's like a famous guy against Gary Payton, who's like famous name, but that's just like one spot. In football, there are a ton of spots open, right? Special teams, the practice squad jobs, like these random, like that guy can make the team. That guy can be on the 49ers, 100%. And he will be given the opportunity in practices when the threes come out. An underrated part about an NFL practice during camp, the threes get more reps. Now, they don't mean anything to us on the sideline. We're not locked in. Like, I don't care. But like the coaches all watch that film. Like they're getting 3 reps at a time, right? You're out there. So you start doing some sweet shit, you get noticed.
Especially at that position group, offensive line, where there's Trent Williams and then anybody else can start for them, right? There's no like, well, we're not taking any snaps from Brendel. No, Brendel, there's not a lot of centers, but you know what I'm saying? Like nobody else, Trent's on scholarship. Nobody else is on scholarship. The other 4 spots are open and available. So when they didn't draft, here's the other thing. Historically, under Kyle and John, this is their 7th draft. The previous 6 years, I just quickly added it up. They averaged 2.5 linemen per draft, either offensive or defensive linemen. They didn't take any offensive linemen this year and took 1 defensive lineman. And as you said before, when I told you that, well, of course, like those positions there's no spots for you, right? But there is a spot for competition for an undrafted guy at offensive line.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got a couple spots on your practice squad. I just think any team going into training camp, because it's hard to evaluate the lines, especially it's impossible to evaluate the offensive lines during OTAs because there's no pads. You can evaluate like, oh, Drake Jackson looks quicker off the line of scrimmage, but it's not like his strength. A lot of positions are set now, right? Like they're not worried about Banks. Right, they're obviously not worried about Trent. I think Jake clearly established himself at center. And if Burford is just like, they're not going, God, he's gotten worse. If he's just solid, like he's just going to be your starter. They'll figure out the right tackle spot.
Yeah, which is this. I think it's McKivitz right now.
Yeah,
I mean,
so exactly. So but he'll still have to somewhat earn it. But it's like him versus one other guy.
Yeah,
the other spots are open. It's like, well, just competition. Who's going to be our backup? Who's going to be our swing guy? And that's no different than every single camp. Right? And when you are, the thing is like for the most part, it's very rare for a 3rd rounder to get cut. You're not guaranteed to make the team starting in the 4th round. I can easily cut you as like a wide receiver, a tackle, a safety, whatever. You can get cut. Obviously 5th, 6th, 7th, get cut
Tyler
all
Wilson.
the time. You're not guaranteed anything. And sometimes like, what if a practice squad guy in your team has gotten a lot better? What if I claim a guy on another team? There's just a lot of moving parts in football, right? There aren't as many guys on scholarship as it often feels. And even if a guy's on the team, it might just mean like, well, we just haven't been able to upgrade it yet, but we're fucking looking.
Yeah. They also don't have they don't have a lot of safeties depth right now. They got like 3 guys.
Well, they got Gibson and Funga, right?
Right, and then starters. George Odom.
It's just special, yeah.
It's like George Odom, they signed last year. You're right. Special teams. Gibson, they added late. That's it. So, to me, it makes sense. You are projecting a year out to replace Gibson, but you're also thinking the first guy we draft, if we draft this, like your safety whoever you drafted, and in this case, it was their first pick, just might have to play early. One thing happens, one injury happens. Just, it can happen quick. And linebacker, right? They don't have a ton of experience at linebacker. They've got Fred and Greenlaw. And after that, it's the two hyphenated guys, Flanagan Fowles and McCrary Ball.
Well, losing Alshire is a
Oren
loss.
Burks.
Alshire at any moment could start for you, and you could win a sweet game against the best team in the league, right? With him taking your 50, 60 snaps.
Yeah.
Like that's a real NFL player.